Welcome to the Model Rail Replacement Podcast, helping you get to your onward journey. A friendly service that helps you get from A to B, or probably nowhere at all.
Hello and welcome to the Model Rail Replacement Podcast. I'm your host, James, and with me is co-host and producer.
Sam. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Sam. How are you? At MERP. We like to call it MERP. And why do we call it MERP? Because we've been calling it MERP for a year. Why have we been calling it MERP for a year, Sam?
Because we are the Model Rail Replacement Podcast, and it is our birthday, or at least it was our birthday this
Right.
week.
Yep. Yeah. Right. Do you know what? Do you know what? This morning, I couldn't get out the door because of I couldn't find my keys. Not a single card. Not a single card.
You know what, James? Sometimes I feel like we just aren't appreciated.
Of course, those that don't pay for the Patreon have no idea what we're talking about. And there's only one way you can find out. Well, actually, there's two ways you can find out. I mean, you could go to Patreon and sign up and have a listen, or you could find someone that already is signed up to Patreon and they can tell you. But if we find out they've told you, we'll strike them off.
Yeah, and we'll call them scabs.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. So there we are. It's our birthday. It's been a year. We've been doing this for a year. It's amazing. Some people say it feels longer.
It's weird. In some instances, it does feel like
Particularly Steve's mum and dad.
Steve's mum and dad said, "Oh, do you remember a couple of years ago when you were on that show?"
Oh, that went on a bit, didn't it?
Yeah.
I'm assuming the dad's Yorkshire.
Do you remember when we went to Budweiser factory?
We took him to theme park, cost me all that money, and he went and stood in the corner and watched ruddy trains. What a waste of money.
You're wasting your time.
So yeah, no, there we are. Yeah, no, it's our birthday. We've been on the air, so to speak, doing this podcast for a whole year, and it's been quite enjoyable, hasn't it?
It
I don't
has.
know. Yeah, I think we've had some good times. We've had some great guests come on, some really nice chats. It's nice to talk about models and railway modelling, and it's not and you say we do get good feedback, and it is nice that people give us that feedback, tell us that they enjoy the show, and it's nice to still feel appreciated. Know that we're growing as a podcast, and here's to many more years, hopefully.
I guess thank you, James, and thank you to all our listeners. There, that's the smushy mushy part out of the way.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for everyone for listening. Because if you weren't listening, this would be an absolute waste of time, and we probably wouldn't even here right now.
Whilst we like talking to each other, our egos also need to be massaged.
So, right, what have you been up to this week then, Sam?
So actually, I feel like so I'm away for a union conference at the moment. Those of you who don't know, I am part of the union for the company that I work for. I'm a big believer in trade unions, and they do some really, really good things. So I'm away for a conference for that at the moment, and I've had to travel.
I'm nodding a lot there because obviously I am also union.
If you're anti-union, this is possibly the podcast you don't want to listen to.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
But so I'm up in Liverpool at the moment, and I owe Northern listeners, I owe you a big sorry, but not in the way that you think. James and I were talking before we started recording. I have seen more different trains, rolling stock, all this sort of stuff in one trip from London Euston to uh, Liverpool Lime Street in one trip than I think I've seen traveling via train for the last 5 years. So I owe you all a massive apology because there's a lot. I've crossed a lot of locos I hadn't seen in the wild off my list. Lots of rolling stock, things that I just don't get to see. And it is the harsh reality of modern day southern stabilizer rail area. We don't really get anything. You get the occasional sort of maintenance train, or you might pass something in a yard, but we never really get anything. So I owe you all a massive apology. Modern day northern modeling, you guys have got plenty of stuff that you can do. So
See, that's why I picked modern day transparent. You see, but so did you mention where you are in the world right now? I can't remember.
yeah, so I'm in Liverpool at the moment.
So what, obviously people like to fill in the map of what MERP thinks the world looks like. Does this mean that the map filled in an Age of Empires style of four squares around you kept building up onto the map? So someone needs to redraw that for us now.
A little bit, but but only London to Liverpool
Yes.
because I was going to make a joke.
Leeds, is that still not on there?
Ironically, I have been to Leeds, but
There we go.
um,
Yeah, fill that bit in
um,
too.
it's so I was going to make a little joke sketch about I'm going to somewhere in the north where they have got rail travel right, and I was going to do a whole spoof about the fact that they've got third rail up here, and it's the one place in the north that seems to actually have their head screwed on. But I thought I said to James, I was like, there's so much stuff that you can do from a modeling point of view in this one trip. I mean, obviously, I went past the crew Heritage Centre where there was a lot of stuff, and a couple of jokes were made on Instagram about how it looks like I've time traveled because it did feel like that at one point. And it was gorgeous. But even outside of the crew area, I saw so many locos. Not, I saw 60s, I saw 56s, I saw 66s, I saw 37s. There was so much on the route, and I saw the bin wagon train as well, sat in a siding at Rusflood, something like that, somewhere on that line. But anyway, it was great traveling up here by train. I've had a very, very good time here. I'll be traveling back home tomorrow. So yeah, it's been fun from a hobby point of view for the actual train spotting side of things. Not so great for the fact that I've been away and not had as much time as I thought I might have had. But we're
Yeah.
recording, that's the main thing. We're making sure the show gets out for you guys sat at home right now.
Indeed we are. So that's a commitment. We're
Yeah.
up late, recording away, and yeah. But yeah,
And
there we go.
I
You
will
don't
be
reach
going straight to
you don't reach a year birthday with your podcast without a few sacrifices. That's all I can say.
exactly. How about you? What have you been up to this week hobby wise?
Well, sacrifices. Well, my family's fallen apart. My wife's left me because I never pay any attention because I'm always in here recording podcasts. But yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, you meant modelling.
All you do is talk about me. And the worst part is just you're not even romantically talking about me. You're just complaining about me. But all she hears about is Sam this, Sam that.
Sam again. He didn't follow the rules of Fight Club again. He didn't do his research again. Oh, you're not there. Hmm.
Where
Guess
did
I'm
you go?
gone.
Where did you go, Mrs. Signalman?
Yeah, gone. Kids and all. And the dog. No, she wouldn't take the dog. There we go. What have I been doing? I have. Did I mention this last week? I'm building the cattle market for Dinred.
I think you said that you'd started it. I don't think you'd got that far in it when we recorded last.
Yeah, because I'm a bit confused because obviously we've recorded the main segment, and I know I've talked about this in the main segment. Time travel wise, from this point, I'm further along than I was when we talked about it in the main segment, which is in the future for everyone listening. Yeah, because I've basically decided I've gone into pending mode, and I need a building, and so when I start scratch building a building, I properly scratch build a building. Like this has got proper timber trusses and posts inside and lots of detail that will probably never be seen, but I just can't leave an empty space in the building unless I know I can block it out from anyone's view. So I'm slowly getting there. I've put all the cladding around the outside. It's got some doors on it now. It just needs a roof. I need to do the downstairs interior by staining the woodwork and just putting some interior cladding for like the woodwork in there, and then it's pretty much there. And it's just a case of just then doing the cattle market to the side of it, then painting it all up, and then finishing the video off. And I should be able to put a video out. Will it come out this week? Well, as we're listening, maybe not. It will probably be next week because it's taking a bit of time, but all depends. All does depend. But that's what I've been doing, and I've been thoroughly enjoying it. I really forgot how much I love scratch building my own buildings for layouts. And I was like, this is actually probably the part of the hobby I like more than anything else is scratch building my own buildings, which has made me rethink how I do layouts. And maybe such large projects of big roundies in the room is not the way to go for me. Maybe I should go for smaller projects where I can add my own personal touch in buildings, etc. So, Sam, we'll come to news. And first of all, there was actually a bit of sad news this week, is the week of recording for many people in the hobby in the industry will probably know Andy York from BRM Magazine or RM Web. He was a contributor to BRM. He does a lot of reviews in there, and he was the main moderator for RM Web. Unfortunately, he passed away this week due to an illness. So that's sad news. It's just sort of condolences to his family and friends, really, and our thoughts with them. It's such a sad piece of news.
Yeah, it's a shame. Quite a stalwart in the hobby. So our condolences to his family.
Indeed. Model news then, if we move on, and not a lot this week, is there? I think we've had a Curious Scale just give us an update on the Class 60s.
Yeah, there wasn't really anything else other than this that I could think of or find, and we've left it quite late for our usual news. We hit a point in the week and go, well, we need to record because I need to edit it, and actually, it's definitely later in the week than usual. So we really tried, but there's not been any news apart from the Curious Scale update. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, just the Class 60. I think they've just mentioned that the demand's been quite high, and due to that, production. I think they wanted the locos over by end of quarter 1, and they're looking at quarter 2 now. So, yeah, we curious, isn't it? How there's such a high demand for the 60s. Didn't they mention something about the 50s in there?
Yeah, so they said that there was even more uptake on their 60s than there was for the 50s. And from a manufacturing point of view, I thought this was really odd because the 50 has previously only been done by Hornby/Lima and now Akira Scale, whereas the 60 has been or is being produced by three manufacturers with Cavalex, Akira Scale, and Hornby. And I find it really odd that the pre-orders of Akira Scale has been way more than the 50s. So, I mean, really interesting. I mean, I like both locos. The 50s a clear favorite of mine. So it's an odd one for me. But yeah, interesting statement.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the 60s have a wider scope and more appeal just because they are a sort of go every region kind of loco, whereas the 50s were kind of confined to originally up in the northwest on the unelectrified West Coast mainline before going over to the Western and then eventually finishing their days on the Wessex.
There's also
So
quite a lot of 60s still around now, which which I found out on my travel up. I saw so many. I'd never seen any in the wild before, and I saw
there
loads
is,
all in
yeah,
one
yeah.
trip.
I think DB have I think they had three remaining running, but I think at the start of this year they took them out of service, which is a bit of a shame because they used to be on the old fuel Merco fuel tanks, and now you just get 66 on that, which is a bit of a disappointment. But that was always quite enjoyable when they used to send it to Didcot for refueling because you just hear the big thudding engine outside as it arrived. But yeah, I mean they are great locos, aren't they? So that kind of makes sense. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for news this week. So we've got our main segment and we've recorded it. What was it about? I can't remember.
So, back in last year, James said, "Wouldn't it be nice if we had a new set of questions or a secondary set of questions that if we ever had a
That's
guest,
it.
if we ever had a guest come back on, it'd be a good idea to ask them the new questions." Now, I'm going to be very honest. Fight Club is dead. We were meant to be doing a Fight Club for this episode, but both of us just time got away of us, and we didn't have because it was going to be a big Fight Club episode as well.
Yeah, it was.
Uh,
Yeah, we were going to try and invite some people on and we'll have a big Royal Rumble again. Try and get that bias out of the way
by
by
inviting all
inviting,
our
by
friends.
inviting Danny, Pete,
Southwest
Southwest,
Max.
and that way it would have been a lot more fairer.
Yeah. Fight Club is predominantly currently it is on hold. I don't want to say it's completely gone because it might come back for a few specials, but that I feel as a show you have to you do have to sit there sometimes and say what works and not only what is a favorite or not favorite with people, but also what do we enjoy doing? Because if you and I don't enjoy doing it, it becomes very easy for us to just stop. Like it becomes a chore for us to record part of an episode if we don't enjoy it. So,
Yeah, I was just fed up with doing your homework, basically.
well, yeah, I was fed up of losing. What we decided to do is because this is also the birthday episode, we James and I are going to be going to these new questions for both of us in one episode. So James and I go through the new questions and we give our answers, but it's more of a back and forth between us what our answers would be and stuff like that. In the future, if we do get guests to come back on, it would be a case of that they go through the questions as they are, like we do with the current questions. But we thought it'd be something nice to do as a little celebratory episode. And yeah, I hope you enjoy our answers.
Indeed. Right, let's take a break. And then when we come back, we'll do that thing I forgot about that we're doing.
Sir, a delivery has arrived for you.
Bring it through, Wilson. This'll be my loco I sent to Emperor's Path.
Was it airbrush or oils this time?
Both. It's all very affordable.
Even for a poorly paid butler like me?
Oh, yes. Just remember, Emperor's Path Weathering.
Contact Sam at Emperor's Path via email at emperorspathcontact@gmail.com or Instagram at emperors_path. If it's not filthy, let's fix that.
Look at that.
Right then, we're back, and this week is a bit of a special week for us at the Model Rail Replacement Podcast because it's our birthday or our year anniversary, whatever way you want to look at it. But it has been a year since we first put out episode 0, that terrible, terrible episode of the Model Rail Replacement Podcast. And here we are. We've made it. We've survived the year. We haven't gone out of business. We haven't been taken off the air. And we haven't been signed up by Netflix. But, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So, yeah, it's good times, right, Sam?
Yeah, no one got us a card though. I mean, it would be nice if somebody got us a card, but I guess we can't get everything. And I think the thing is as well, over the last year, we've been pretty consistent with episodes coming out. I feel like when you listen to certain things or watch YouTube, I mean, my YouTube channel is the perfect example of it. The only thing that's constant on there is these episodes at the moment. And then when we switch to our own YouTube channel, we're not going to have that anyway. So, I'm terrible at posting videos, but this has been my constant. This has been my outlet for doing the hobby and keeping things up to date and focusing on news and having chats with you and all of our guests. So I feel like that's a great thing about this. We take the holidays off because we've got families, but we're pretty consistent that we have episodes pretty much every week.
Indeed. So I thought this week we could do a bit like we did with them when we first come around, and we got our little list of questions and we asked each other our usual set of interview style questions, but it's a new set. What do you reckon? Do you want to have a go at it?
Yeah, let's have a go at it, and then maybe one day we'll get previous guests back to ask these questions again.
Indeed. They can come back on and they can answer round 2 of our questioning. Let's dive straight in then, shall we? It's all pretty much the same format, so there's to be no surprises out there for anyone. It's that we've ventured off somewhere, I suppose. But our first question for our new round of questioning: are you more of a passenger or a freight fan?
This is a difficult question for me simply because the area I model is heavy passenger, but I do like freight. But I've had to be very strict with myself about what I purchase. I think if you'd asked 5-year-old Sam when I had like first train set and stuff like that, it would have always been freight. But I feel like this is probably one of the more difficult questions because I really like both of them now. But I think if I had to really pick, I think freight is definitely my favorite right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Were you surprised by that, or is that something you were expecting?
Due to your lack of freight trains on your layout, it is a bit of a surprise, isn't it?
I think it's because I really like freight, but also what I run in my area, there's not really the freight to go with it. So I'm quite strict with what I have available. But I love the container, sort of the shipping container wagons, and I love the bin lorry wagons, and I love big tanker wagons. I do love freight, and I love mixed freight especially, and that's one of the few freights I do have on my layout. But I think passenger stock is definitely one of the ones that suits what I'm modeling, the era and the area that I'm modeling. How about you? What are you, more passenger or freight?
Oh, I'm definitely freight through and through. I think freight is far more interesting and far more fun to play with. I mean, yeah, an express passenger train thundering through a scene is quite cool to look at. But I think when you're actually working on a layout or using a layout, I think it's much more fun to have those freight trains and trundle into a yard and you're shunting some wagons around and adding bits or taking away. And I just think it makes it a bit more operational interesting. And I think wagons are just generally more interesting than rolling stock as well, like why they're built, what they carry, what they're for, the reasons of why they're on the railway. And yeah, so I quite, I think I've said it before, but I do have quite a bit of an interest in freight wagons, just because of their uses and there's a whole history behind why they're there and what they're doing.
I think what's also really lovely about it is with the freight wagons, it's a lot easier to build up a rake of them at the moment, especially if you're doing something like a speedlink service. So you can have that thing where looking at my speedlink service, there's 5 to 6 different types of wagons in a speedlink rake, and you only need to get 1, 2, 3, or 4 of those wagons per rake. So you can slowly build it up. And I've said it before, I think one of the hardest things to do in this day and age is if you're modeling anything that's 1980s onward, it's quite difficult to build up an effective or a rake of coaches. I feel like they're harder to get hold of. And I've done it over the last four years. I've slowly built up my collection of rolling stock that's allowed me to do that. But it's been difficult, and it's had to be where you start off with one of the coaches and then you buy another one. And then sometimes you go to a show and there's 2 of the coaches you need, and you build it up slowly but surely. But I feel like with passenger stock, I love seeing it and I love the long rakes of passenger trains, but I feel like it's the harder one to build up. And with freight, you also have that fantastic thing of you can weather it really nicely. You can really go to town with freight. And we used your MOD train as an example previously. There's just so much you can do with them that it doesn't have to be the same coach. You can have 2 VGA wagons, a coal hopper, an OTA, and some tanker wagons and things like that. So you can mix and match it a lot more than you can with coaching stock. And it's certainly easier to build up a rake of freight rolling stock these days than it is to build up passenger stock, because the passenger stuff just goes in a second. I mean, look at the Akira Scale Mark IIs. They've gone, and now they're going for silly money on eBay.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Yeah, like you say, with freight, it doesn't really matter. You can just buy some wagons, particularly like steam era, as long as it's around the right period. Most of what you buy you can run it in the combination, and no one will tell you it's wrong. I'm sure there'll be the odd wagon where it wouldn't be seen in that area, but there's not much, I don't think. And like you say, it's a lot easier to assemble and put something together than like passenger stock of particular type. Maybe the more modern day block trains can be a bit more difficult. I know that Bachmann did those Freightliner wagons for like 80s and 90s modelers, and they've only ever done one lot. So they did the Freightliner containers and the Maskell and some other inner wagons, and that was it. That's all they've ever done. And that's been about, I think, 2018 they come out,
Yeah.
and they're like rocking horse poop to try and find.
I think another
um,
thing as well is the age of the freight wagons seem to hold up even if they're old rolling stock. So my TTA wagons, you said about the Hornby Sea Cows or the old Lima tooling, like a lot of these stuff, a lot of freight just seems to hold up so much nicer than some of the old passenger stock on railways. So you
yeah,
can use a lot of the older stuff and it doesn't look out of place with your newer stuff.
yeah, I think so. I think people are, are less fussy when it comes to the wagons because you just want to build up the train.
Mm,
And when you start looking at the more detailed stuff and considering how much it's going to cost you to build up the train, suddenly that detail isn't so important to you, and you get, yeah, screw it, I'll get the old Lima tooling. That'll do. It looks like what I want it to look like, and when it's going around the layout, you're not going to know.
mm.
So there's probably a few contributing factors, but yeah, to answer that first question, for both of us, then it's freight, which it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Right then, are you ready for question number 2?
I am. And I think this is possibly the easiest one for me to answer.
Yeah. So the question is, what is your favorite railway company, sector, or TOC, and why is it Network Southeast?
I mean that was going to be a given, right? Everyone knows the Aquafresh Express is definitely going to be top of my list. It contradicts what I've just said that I prefer freight over passenger, and so I think Speedlink would definitely be, or maybe even Dutch liveried things would possibly be very close behind it. But I think Network Southeast, it's so iconic for me, my childhood, and even now. I see a lot of Network Southeast stuff and I get excited. And it doesn't matter if it's not something that I remember seeing or even something that ran in my area. I still get really excited about seeing Network Southeast stuff. Class 121 bubble cars, 117 DMUs, they never really ran around my neck of the woods. But for some reason, I've got this image of seeing them when I was younger. And I think they look great, and especially the models of them now. I just think Network Southeast has that thing where it has a really nice splash of color. But also, if you look at the images of it in the day, it was also heavily weathered in some instances. So you do have that really nice mix of something really bright, colorful, passenger stock, but it is also something that got dirty very quickly because it has such a large amount of white on it and lighter colors, so you can see it. And I just think it's very eye-catching, personally.
Yeah, it's the livery of nostalgia for us, really, isn't it? I think mine would be Network Southeast as well. Well, closely followed by GBRF, because I like what GBRF do with their locos. It's not just their blue and yellow standard branding. I mean, they have two types there. They have their old. They still keep their retro GBRF branding, and then they've got the more modern, slightly bolder yellow color with the sort of curve going from the blue to the yellow. But thrown in on top of that, they've got all their BR retro liveries, which covers everything really. So
Yeah.
and there's Network Southeast in that. They've got a 73 in that. So I quite like and all those 69s coming out and all those different liveries. I mean, it's brilliant. I think the latest one is like a Kestrel livery.
Yeah.
That mustard yellow and brown. It looks fantastic. I'm annoyed I missed it because it went by the house the other day and I had no idea until I saw photos, as I always do, because I always see a photo. So for God's sake.
I think the GBRF livery is definitely. I think if I modelled in a modern era, that would be something I'd definitely be snapping up. Because when it came to the Class 60, the Acura scale, and the Class 56 and the Class 92, I really like that GBRF. See, you said yellow. I thought it was blue and orange. So I'm intrigued about it. But I love seeing
amber.
Amber.
Probably amber.
Amber, Jurassic Park color. And I think the 92s, the 60s, especially like the Acura scale versions of it, when you see the pictures of them online, I think it just looks like such a good livery. And I think if I was modeling a modern era, that would definitely be something. I'd definitely edge towards that GBRF color on some of the newer locos. And it's probably the reason I never bought or never ordered one of the 60s from Acura scale, was because I actually prefer it in the modern livery than I do in the era specific livery that would have fitted on my layout, despite the fact that the 60s did come into Portsmouth. It was very much one of those things. I was like, I actually think the 60 in the GBRF livery is possibly the best livery out of the lot.
Yes, yeah, that I think the old Colas one as well. I thought was quite nice, but again, GBRF never repainted that one. It's still wearing its Colas colours. Just says rail freight on the side now, and but yeah, as I say, they've got it covered really. I mean, they've got large logo 66s and triple grey sector 66s, even Brunswick green with evening star. And the same with the 69 in Brunswick green as well. So yeah, they've got it all covered. So a bit of a cheat answer, I think, GBRF.
Yeah, you're sort of doing it. I mean, technically it answers the question, but I get why. I get why you like it, and I think if I was modelling that era, I'd probably definitely be inclined to go towards that sort of livery.
So yeah, but yeah, nostalgia-wise, I say Network Southeast. I definitely get that. I understand that. I'm sure there'll be accusations of our southern bias, but that is because we grew up with it. That's what we saw. It was a very bright and attractive livery, and yeah. Cool, right. So there we are then. Right, we've decided yours is Network Southeast. Mine is GBRF for a favourite company, sector, or TOC. And moving on then, what is your favourite piece of rolling stock you own?
See, we mock people, or we joke around with people where they get to certain questions and they go, "Oh, I don't actually know," and we go, "But you've had these questions for ages. You can answer these." But then as soon as you ask the question, I suddenly froze because actually looking at my layout, there's so many cool pieces of rolling stock that I really really love. I love running around. I love my Network Southeast coaches. I love my Sea Cows. I love my Speedlink rate, but it's very new to the layout, but it's one that I've been after for a long time, and I really love seeing it run around. It's the only modern thing that I own, and that's the Caledonian Sleeper. And I don't know whether you can class it as the whole rake of coaches or whether it's just one coach, but I just think it's such a beautiful piece of rolling stock, and it's done so well, and I'm so impressed with it. And the detail on it is insane. And I think one day I'd love to get a little Model U figure sort of sat down to have at the little dining car looking out the window, because obviously in a sleeper car you don't really have you're not really going to see many people, but it's one of those places where I remember sitting, and as I went into Edinburgh the first time I was on it, just the beautiful view that you saw as you were sort of going in looking out of the dining car. And I think that'd be something that'd be really really fun to model. I don't actually know how to get in the coaches, but the short answer is the Caledonian Sleeper coaches.
That's a good answer. I have the TransPennine versions, and they are very nice coaches. They do look very smart, and that modern look of the new age of coach. And I think Curiosco have done a great job on them. Mine is be no surprise because I've already mentioned this before when we did our rolling stock for freight wagon fight club. It's the Revolution HOA wagon, still my favourite. Particularly the DB Shanker liveried ones. I just really love the colours of the red. It's got some yellow piping on it, and the grey bogies. They run really nice. They just look really good behind the 66. And I just they're one of my favourite pieces of rolling stock on the layout. I just really enjoy them, and they're such a really high quality model as well, which is an added bonus. And that's mine. Easy at the moment. I mean, year's time, will I change my mind? Who knows? But as it stands, it's the Revolution HOA wagons.
I think they're so cool as well because you get to see they're after the container wagons. For me, they're the ones I see the most, and we joke about Thatcham being a place. The place I see them the most is when I'm sat at the level crossing at Thatcham, and that's after you've seen the 387s, 378s, the GWR Electrostar. That's the next thing that I see go through there all the time, and they come in a variety of liveries, and they are disgustingly filthy. They are possibly some of the most graffitied stock I've ever seen in my life, and it's just such a delight to see them going through the station. So I get why you're picking those, and based on how passionate you were about how good it is as a piece of rolling stock for your model railway, I get it. I completely understand.
Yeah, they're cool. I like them. I think Revolution did a really good job with them. And if you're a modern image modeler, I highly recommend them. That's all I can say to that, really. Right then. So that's our favourites that we own. What about your favourite piece of rolling stock that you don't own? Is there something out there that you want that you haven't quite got your hands on yet?
It's a difficult one because I've been trying to look at what I don't have, and I feel I feel like I've got one of everything that I feel like I'd need. Can we do with this one that doesn't have a model of it yet, like we've done with the
Oh
uh,
yeah.
obviously
Could
that
be.
we do the question in the original where it was like name an item that you want, and it can be something that isn't in production or is in production. Um,
Yeah.
cool, thanks. I've said that and now I've suddenly gone completely blank.
You were just buying for time, weren't you? But
I was
you had no answer.
James. I have no answer to suit this. God, I think this is actually quite a difficult question because I feel like there's a lot of things where I'd like one or two more of them. I'll tell you what it is. It's the TEA wagons. I know we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, and I feel like it's one of those wagons where I'd really love to get a rake of them, but every time I see them, the price, it's that mentality of the price that you are willing to pay for something, and everyone has a price where they go, "Yep, that's an automatic buy," or "Oh, that's good. That's a good price." I can never see the TEA wagons at a price where I'm yeah, I'm going to buy it. And I think it's because I have none of them and you need a rake of them. It's not like a one-off thing that you just see in a mixed rake. And I
Yeah.
never see them and go, I'm buying 5 of those or I'm buying 8 of those sort of thing. And I think it's one of those wagons where I'd love to have them because I think to weather they'd be beautiful, but I just can't ever pull the trigger for the price point that they're at. So I think that's probably the best one I can sort of sit at, because a lot of the rolling stock I do own, I either own one of, or I've got a rake of the ones that I've been after for ages. I've just recently acquired in a trade with a friend some of the Akira scale Mark II coaches, and they're fantastic. And that probably would have been my answer, but I now own some, so that's sort of out the window on that one. But I'd like to see a new set of the Mark II Fs coming out. That would also be a good idea. But I think the TEA wagon is probably one that I've never purchased and I'd love a rake of, but I can never pull the trigger for the price point.
Yeah, it's a funny one because when you're on a block train, you kind of, like you say, you want a number of those wagons, and one, the price is a contributing factor. And I suppose even if you decided to get one or two, you can't then guarantee you'll be able to get another, 5 to 6 more to go with it in that same livery, and then you might end up with 2 wagons that are completely useless to you, that you end up selling on or something like that. It's a tough one. I think that's one of the bigger problems with modern image modeling.
Yeah.
It's an investment.
Yeah, it's
Probably the best way to describe the era.
yeah, I think that's probably the best way to do it. And it's that irony of a month ago, I would have said either the Akira Scale Mark II coaches or the Akira Scale Mark V coaches. And now within the last month, I've managed to acquire all of them. So I'm sort of like, oh. Well, yeah, I think rolling stock's the harder one because there's a lot of locos I'd love to own, but I don't own because I don't need more locos. I only have 12 lines of fiddle yard, plus I've already got extra locos on top of that to switch in and out from my rolling stock rakes. And it's sort of, I feel like that's the loco would have been an easier choice. But yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with TEAs on that one. What about you?
Well, mine is it's something that's only sort of recently, I suppose. It's always been a nice looking model, but it's sort of the appeal's only become a bit more apparent since I've started picking up a few more Steam items, and I'd quite like to get the Bachmann Ransoms and Rapier 45-ton crane, ideally in the BR livery.
Yeah.
I think it's a fantastic looking model. This is when it come out. I wasn't modeling anything Steam related, so I didn't really need it. But now I'm sort of thinking about going, well, I could get one of them. And the boy likes to derail stuff and pretend there's been an accident, and he keeps requesting that the breakdown crane come out. And I mean, I had the old Hornby one, but I sold that on. I mean, that wasn't a fantastic model. It is okay for its age,
Yeah.
but it was never the detailed model of a crane that we all needed until Bachmann brought this model along. So that's the one that's appealing to me at the moment. And I think it's still available. Having a look at this Google search, and but I mean, it just looks stunning. Some of the detail and like, all the gears and the rope work on it and everything looks brilliant. But yeah, that's on my to get list, I suppose, at the moment.
Ironically, that was at Ali Pali. I saw that quite a lot around the show, and I looked at it and thought that's an all right price. But for me, it's not something I wanted. If I'd known that you were after one, or maybe it was on your wish list, I could have dropped you a text. But I mean, yeah, I get it. And it's such an iconic thing to have a breakdown crane. We're not going to touch on it because everyone is just going, oh, yeah, there you go. But breakdown cranes have been a very iconic model to have in the hobby, and even in the modern day with the Balfour Beatty ones that have just come out from Effie, they're such a cool little piece of kit that you can understand why people would want them on their layout.
Yeah, yeah. I always think engineering wagons and trains, etc., are quite fascinating and quite the interesting subject. I've seen someone build a whole layout dedicated to just the Satlink brand of wagons.
Mhm.
Those red and yellow ones.
Yeah.
It's just a yard, a Satlink yard, basically. The whole layout is just, and they've just collected the various different wagons over the years, because that's their interest. It was just those wagons. So yeah, there's something about engineering and yeah, just the engineering wagons that makes an interesting appeal, I think.
Yeah.
That's the rolling stock that we don't own, that we'd like to own.
I know the next question, and I know why you're laughing.
Sam, surprise us all. Weathered or pristine?
James, it's got to be that fresh out of the box look on a loco or
Look
rolling
at
stock.
that.
No, I mean this is like because obviously you wrote these questions, and I don't think you and I when we sat down with them, I don't think you ever anticipated that we would be doing them. But we've sort of hit this 1 year thing, and actually we thought it'd be quite a fun thing to do for our 1 year. So this seems really silly asking me this question. The answer's obviously going to be weathered, isn't it? I mean, I feel ashamed whenever I post a video where I have my own rolling stock that isn't weathered, but sometimes you just don't have the time. I mean, at the end of the day, paying customers come first. There's rolling stock on my layout that I'm like, I just need to get to that one day. And then I sort of forget, like the Cali sleeper set is completely pristine at the moment. And I'm just like, they're minging. Like, whilst they are reasonably clean in some instances, the 92 and the bottoms of the coaches are disgusting. But yeah, it's got to be weathered for me. No shock there. What about you, James?
Yeah, no, I like a nice pristine model. It holds the value, and it means that when I've changed my mind 2 months later, it's a lot easier to sell. But no, it's got to be weathered, hasn't it? I love weathered models. I love weathering models, and it's that finishing touch. Do you know what I really like is so I weathered a cargo wagon flatbed. I can't remember the code, and I sold it on a couple of weeks ago to Lucy at Varkenham.
Mm.
And she put the photos of it on the layout, and it's the first time I've got to see my 00 gauge weathering actually on a scenic layout, and a very nice, good scenic layout as well. And it just blended in so well, and I was like really pleased with my weathering. I was like, oh, that was worth the wait because that's years ago. However, that one has just been sat in the box waiting for a scenic layout on my end for things that never happened. And it was so satisfying and pleasing, and it looked so real. So yeah, it's got to be weathered for me.
Yeah, it makes sense. And we've both said before that there is a time and a place, and everyone can have their own opinion. And I think having pristine out of the box is when the feeling of when you have something that's weathered, it does have that individualistic. You'll never get 100% that exact same weathering on another wagon, rolling stock, loco, or anything like that. And it's what makes it. And you can tell, especially if you get them done by different people, companies. Steve at Neville Grove does X amount of stuff on his. Then you've got the TMC who do all of their fantastic weathering and the graffiti that they do on there. Having seen it in the flesh for the first time, it's insane. Like I can weather and I can do giant batches of weathering, but I can't. I'll be honest, I can't do that graffiti stuff. I guess I've never really properly tried, but the level of detail that goes into it is insane. I think that's why weathered definitely for me wins over, because you almost have a one of a kind type thing on a model that hundreds and thousands of people own versions of.
Yes, that's it, isn't it? Yeah, and yeah, I think yeah, like you said, the TMC graffiti is great because graffiti is actually quite difficult to do weathering, and I know you can buy. Some people do like transfers and stuff. You can put it on that way, but if you want to do it with actual paint, I did it with those VGA wagons, and I did it with paint pens and copied an actual image. But yeah, if you're a modeler who likes weathering, but you're not going out and tagging stuff at night, then you're probably not that well skilled in graffiti. So it can be quite the challenge to sort of model something like that. But like you say, it looks really good. I know not everyone's a fan of things being tagged and graffitied, but that is the sad state of modern life is the railway gets tagged and graffitied all the time. And in particular, wagons, when they're left in the sidings overnight, will, inevitably come off the siding with a fresh paint job of bright blues and purples and some ridiculous word that you can't understand written on the side because it's got no vowels. And but yeah, it always makes it look more realistic, doesn't it?
Yeah, agreed. It just adds a depth, and yeah, you've got that thing of no one else is going to have that ever again. That you are, especially when it's graffiti and it's done by painting it. I know a Bunter's Yard does the transfers for it, but you'll never have that. You have a one of a kind thing. It's like it is in essence a piece of art. So yeah, I agree.
Cool. Right then. So that was a big shock to everyone that we like to see stuff weathered.
Which is nice
But
considering we had such great feedback about our weathering episode. It I mean, I'd feel like we'd be hypocrites if we were like pristine.
this is true. Yeah. Oh yeah. I've had comments of people saying, "Oh, I didn't realize you had this video and this video," and they've sort of gone back and watched. But I saw the other day those VGA vans still only sit at 432 views.
Which is bonkers considering the level of what's gone into it. I guess
That's what
people
hurts
just
the most. Yeah, of all the videos I've done, that's probably one of the videos with one of the most effort
Yep.
and time-consuming amount of recording, editing, etc. And it's only been viewed by 432 people.
Three of those are definitely me. But yeah, so should we move on to the next question?
Yes, the next question, the big question. What's your dream layout?
I think dream layouts are because when I think about it, I still want it to be within reach when I think dream layout, but my dream layout's technically hypocritical to how I like to run trains at home. So I guess technically I'd have to have it where this is fully automated for me to enjoy it. And I don't know if I'd have the space to do this in double O gauge, but it's me and I can do what I want and it's a dream layout. I think for me, such an iconic terminus station for me as a little southern boy has always been Waterloo. I think it is the quintessential southern terminus of London. And
Are you having it as the Eurostar era?
yes. So that's the thing is, so those of you who don't know, the Eurostar used to run out of London Waterloo, which is such a weird concept when you think that the only reason the Eurostar had third rail was to get from there to the overhead, which is what I think. I think that's correct. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, that was it. Yeah.
So they put third rail pickups on the Eurostar solely to get it out of Waterloo and then onto that East Line all the way down to Dover. And that's bonkers in my eyes. But also for me, that's great because it made Waterloo this big international station, in essence. And now that's very much a case of that those particular platforms are just used by your run-of-the-mill EMUs and DMUs from the south. But seeing the track work that comes out of Waterloo, I don't know if I'd be able to do it personally, to lay all of those points and those junctions and stuff like that. And signalling it must be an absolute nightmare. But I'd love to have a model of London Waterloo. And I don't think I'd like to run it. It would be one of those train sets where, because I like having trains constantly running around the clickety clack for me, it would be the automated, seeing all the trains come into the different stations and watching all these trains go. I think it would be a fantastic thing to have as a model.
Oh yeah, no, you'd have to have it automated, wouldn't you? Or that, or a team of at least 30 people just to work it.
I think after speaking to Steve from the British Railroader and speaking to Chris from Peachy TT120, I do have, and seeing it at shows, I do have a real soft spot for TT at the moment. And I wish there was more of it because I think that would be a really good scale to attempt to model something like that in. And,
I think TT definitely be a great scale for attempting a large terminus station or just a large through station.
Yeah.
It's definitely got. I've seen York been done in N gauge, and it goes around on the exhibition circuit. I think it's 2 mm fine scale to be much more kinder to the magnificent model that it is.
Yeah.
And it does look great. But yeah, I think like you say, TT, it's just a little bit bigger, and it probably has got that potential for those big stations. So yeah, I can see that.
I think that would be the dream. I mean, for me, as how I run my trains, if it wasn't going to be automated, I'd say I'd probably have to run it where it's almost a through station, a bit like York, because York isn't a terminus, but it's a huge station. And I think, or even sort of an Edinburgh Waverley kind of thing, where big station, but you do have trains running through it, not necessarily, but it also has the terminus platforms in there. And I think Dean Park's done a fantastic job with that. The model of their recreation of or inspiration from Edinburgh Waverley is fantastic. And I think it's stations like that I really do like. But I guess TT, London Waterloo would be a perfect example because I feel like it wouldn't be overwhelming in terms of, because I guess in Double O, the depth that you'd need for is it 18 platforms? Mark from Midsworth Holt is probably screaming at me right now, but there's a lot of platforms, and it's that sort of thing of you kind of want to do as much of it as you possibly could. So the depth you'd need for the baseboards just for one section would probably be reaching somewhere around the 8 foot mark, which is quite a depth to try and stretch over if you have any derailments.
You would be indeed, yeah. I mean, if you don't got the room, you could always do the design where you actually model the platform or a platform at the very front of the board. So it's as if you're on that platform, just watching, say, platforms 4, 3, 2, and 1,
Yeah.
and that's all you can see. Everything else is behind you. There's always that sort of trick of modeling such a large location like that, isn't there? But yeah, as a full concept, yeah, it'd be massive, wouldn't it? But yeah, I think it'd look great.
And you could almost have the Eurostar part on a shuttle system because as I was going into Waterloo for Ali Pally, I was with Mark from Midsworth Holt, who is a train driver for Southwestern Railways. And he was explaining certain parts of me, and he said that this little overpass bit is the part that the Eurostar used to go up to go and join the East. And he said it's not used for anything else. That is only for the Eurostar. So you do have that essence that even on such a big London terminus, and you're modeling those Eurostar platforms, you could have a shuttle system that goes off up this hill and goes and hides away somewhere else. And you've got that sort of, you have one thing going up and down on this single pathway where nothing else goes, and then you have all the other trains going on all the other platforms. So there is a certain modeling potential there. But I've hogged a lot of the limelight talking about Waterloo. What would yours be?
What would mine be? Do you know what? There's a few that spring to mind. I think we touched on York. I think York would be an absolute fantastic model to do in any era. I think. I think it's one of those stations that's iconic throughout its age. And there's, the lines going off to Scarborough, they're continuing north towards Newcastle. Obviously, you've got the lines going towards London. You've got the yard to the side of it. It's I think it's a great location. Carlisle sticks in my mind as well. I think Carlisle would be quite a fun station to model. Although more in the steam era, it had avoiding lines for the freight around the side, so you'd have to incorporate that somehow. I think if I picked a big station, I'd probably be swayed to Bath Green Park. Obviously, the Taunton Model Railway Group have a model of Bath Green Park, and it's massive and it's amazing, and it looks so good. Basically, I just have that layout off them. But I think if it was a dream layout, in truth, and it's something I've always wanted to do, and I think in reality I don't have the time, the money, the space. I would love to have a full route rather than just a location. I'd rather have it the train starts at point A and it finishes at point Z, and calls it B through to Y, or all the way around the room kind of thing. And again, you probably have to do automation to run something like that. I think it's more of an American railroad concept than it is over here. I think I've only seen one attempt at it over here. It appeared in Mahoi magazine for a couple of years, and then it seemed to have died a death. I don't ever recall seeing anything more on it. But there was a chap trying to build a Western region style layout with massive helixes that took it on each level, and it called here, there, and everywhere. Something like that's always appealed. Yeah, that would be the dream layout. I think the practicalities of it would probably make it more of a nightmare. But I've always liked that idea that you're running a whole railway rather than just a section of it.
Yeah, I get that.
But yeah, that's probably what I'd go for. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, it'd probably be if I condensed it. And for that, then the S&D would be probably my ideal choice of having a Bath Green Park at one end, Bournemouth West at the other, and all the stops in between, or just a handful of them. And I've even seen track plans in some books which have sort of condensed it down. You'd have to have very short trains because they fitted it in the garage. I think it was like 3 coach trains, but Manchester, Bournemouth. They had Manchester. They had Bath Green Park. They had Bournemouth West. It was all sort of spiraling around the room. How you'd move around that garage in that plan, I don't think that had been thought through, but it did look quite cool.
I guess McKinley Railway is the closest thing to that in the sense that they have London, Manchester,
Of
Liverpool.
course, no, completely forgot about them. Yeah, apologies to McKinley. Yeah, they are. I mean, yeah, they've done the country, haven't they? They're not just a route. It's just,
I feel
yeah.
like my one gripe with McKinley, and it's because they've got it's such a huge railway, is you see like the updates from them, and I just want to see some of the trains going between them, which you don't always see. And I know that's because it's such a large layout that they fix one thing and then they're firefighting another thing. And this isn't an argument about McKinley and this is what you should do, because I don't own that giant railway that's effectively owned by a group of people.
Hmm.
But that would be the sort of thing I would like to see. I'd love to see. I think they used to do it on their older videos, where they used to have a train going from one location to another, and it goes down. They call it Hades, their massive Helix fiddle yard area. But it would be really interesting to see a more recent version of them just operating trains, because they go, "This is what we've been fixing. This is what we've been doing. All their RFID stuff." But let's just see running trains on the layout. That'd be a really cool thing to see, I think. So, McKinley, if you're listening, David, I know we've spoken before at shows. That's what I think you need to get Charlie to do in your next videos. so yeah. Apologies, James. Carry on.
Yeah, no, I'm yeah, yeah. McKinley's cool, quite a cool one, but yeah, that's probably what I'd like the route, but yeah, or as I say, one of those big stations. Um, Surprisingly, it's a steam era that appeals to me more as a dream layout than a diesel.
Yeah, I get that.
I like modeling modern day, but I quite like a snapshot image, I suppose, of a modern day, just picking a small area and running something through, and just seeing the trains run by. But I think Steam Era has that much more operational potential and interest that makes it more fun. And it goes back to that first question of passenger or freight. And then the answer being freight is because you can model a yard and you can do the shunting and adding the wagons, and you've got to pick up goods and that, swapping the locos around and all that sort of added interest, which modern image, diesels tend to lose in the practicalities of keeping things efficient and simple. Why it makes for a better railway these days, it's not so much fun as a model railway. So it's yeah. So I think that's why I love the Class 68 so much. It's just that bit of difference that runs by on the Chiltern line, amongst all those DMUs. But,
Yeah.
so yeah. No, I'd say yeah. Ideally a route. I think that'd be the dream layout. The dream layout would be probably the Somerset and Dorset route. It's kind of what I'm trying to achieve with my own 009 by building up module boards that can eventually connect together to make the route of what I've, the fictional line I've designed in my head.
Yeah.
Again, storage and putting it out and what I do with it is another question. But
how and when you do such a thing is definitely the other side of that.
yeah, I've already started thinking about a big log cabin at the end of the garden. On a day. The model room's a bit small for everything I want. If I've got a nice big log cabin,
That's probably a good idea.
move down the end of the garden, and then this can become the games room. You see, we could squeeze a pool table in here, and a dartboard, and happy days. But yeah, cool. Right, so that is the dream layout. Continuing with the theme of layouts, I suppose we're kind of covered with the dream layouts. But would you rather your layout be built for parading trains, shunting, running a depot, or as a terminus station?
This is one of those possibly shocker things, because I love running trains and having them loop around. My dream has always been, since I discovered the McKinley Railway actually and saw them at the Southampton show where they have their sort of demo layouts, I'd love to move into automation. I don't necessarily get loads of joy from where I'm not a shunter kind of person, or at least I don't have a layout that shunts at the moment. I get joy out of just seeing the trains run round, whether it's sound, no sound, clickety clack on the track, or the horns and stuff like that. I would love it if my current layout or any layout I had was automated, because that takes away the part of there isn't necessary, unless I'm with other people. It's not the fun part to me. So I guess the answer would be parading trains under the guise that it's an automated thing. And the idea would be, let's say, for example, right next to me at the moment, I've got a Class 33 with a rake of heritage coaches. The idea is that that comes round, goes over the bridge, and its fiddle yard line is getting lined up. So that goes in there. Just as that's getting towards the end of its run round, another loco leaves the fiddle yard and starts its journey round. And it's sort of, I'd love it to be where my 12 lines of fiddle yard is almost on a random setting where I can put it on and it will be a case of that it will randomly pick which train's going to be going round. And let's say the Cali Sleeper comes out of one bit, and then the next train that comes out of it is my ballast train. And it's never the same, is what I'd like it to be. So you might have on one line the Heritage and the 33, and then the Cali Sleeper on the other. But actually, on the next time that 33 goes round, it's a completely different train that's running past it, sort of thing. I would love to have that sort of level of automation where I could just put it on and have lots of different trains running around with sound, without, and stuff like that. I think that's my caveat to having it as a parading trains kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I thought you'd go for that. Obviously, your natural choice is always to just run things around in circles. But yeah, I quite like the idea. No, it's ever since I saw Grantham the other week and seeing the trains, like you say, it's kind of a parade of trains, and they do that with the crack expresses. They'll run them round twice just to make sure that everyone sees them, so that every express gets two circuits. But the more interesting thing I found that layout was the lesser trains, so to speak, which would come into the station, and then they'd unhook the loco, take it off, put it on a shed, and then put a fresh loco on to continue towards London or up towards North, well, down towards York technically, and that's sort of a more recent thing that's kind of appealed. I was like, I kind of like that idea that you taking stuff on and off the depot and swapping trains around, which was kind of what I wanted with this double O gauge build that I was building in here before it sort of ground to a halt. But the idea was I was going to have a depot on the layout, and the fiddle yard off scene would also be the fictional yard that that was beyond the bridge, and you'd see a train pass by, go in the yard, and then we'd take another loco off the depot that would then go into the fiddle yard, pick up those wagons, and then come back out, but essentially with a new train. And then the loco that had just gone in the fiddle yard would then bring back out, and that could then sit on the depot there. So I guess that's my answer really. I suppose I like the idea of the depot working. If it's not depot working, it's shunting. It's definitely just moving things around and sort of getting lost in the operations of arranging trains, which sometimes take hours. I quite enjoy the Inglenook fiddle yard, Inglenook shunting puzzle layouts.
Yeah.
Although I found that after a period of time, I could solve them very quickly, which was a bit of it was a bit annoying really, because it was like fun. And then once I'd worked out the sort of there's only so many ways you can arrange a train, it's kind of a bit too easy, which took the fun away from it, to be honest. I don't know. I blame my job for that, because that's kind of I have to do as being a signalman, is you have to look at situations sometimes and work out problems and ways out of them. And I had to do it last night actually, with some fun and games in Southwell Yard, because there was too many trains booked in. So working with a sigler and just to say, right, we'll put this one here, we'll hold this one here, we'll do this, and we got out of the situation in the end because it was carnage, but but it's all the fun of the job, and I suppose that's why I enjoy that in my modelling as well. I suppose it's a busman's holiday, so to speak.
Yeah, I get it.
Right then, so there we go. We've concluded what style of layout we enjoy, and what comes with that layout usually for most people, it is the odd exception, is the fiddle yard. So Sam, do you have a preference on fiddle yard? Is there a way you like to store your trains and sort of run your layout?
Well, I don't think this is going to come as a big surprise to anyone, really, because we've talked about this before, and it's the style of fiddle yard that I currently run, and it's the ladder formation fiddle yard. And I'd not heard it talked about how Peachy talked about it in last week's episode, where as a drive-in, drive-out fiddle yard, and I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense. It is a case of it drives in and it drives out, and I very much like the ladder formation of fiddle yard because For me, not being able to physically reach my fiddle yard at the moment, having it on the analog where I can change all the points and stuff, it seems to work quite nicely. I don't have to turn anything around. I don't have to manually turn any of the, like on the turntable style or the like the one that's on the desk drawer. I think that I can't remember what that one's called, but it's that thick. But I love the ladder formation, and I think especially the way mine's laid out, over 2 foot, you've got 12 lines. You can actually fit the lines quite close together and still get to your trains if you need to. And I think it's really good for space saving. I mean, on a station area, you wouldn't have 12 lines over 2 foot. It just wouldn't work, would it? But in the fiddle yard formation, it works really, really well. And if you have the space to do that sort of thing, I think it's a really good idea to have one. I mean, I first saw it on Charlie from Chadwick's version, and that's what sort of sold me on. I think that's the kind of fiddle yard size that I want. How about you? What's your preference?
Well, I've tried a few. So we tried the cassette style fiddle yard on the boys' N gauge that we built. It just seemed to be impractical for some of the train sizes and how we were doing it. So we didn't really feel that one. And I think the natural is to go to like you say, the ladder style. Essentially, that's what we did on that Engage one at the end. The ones I've built in before have all been ladder style. I've done ladder style on my 009, this 00 behind me. If anything, it's all on space. I'd like to have a return loop fiddle yard style, so that the trains go somewhere and they come back rather than, they go north to then appear from the south again to go north again. It's the one thing that it kind of takes away the illusion to me, when the train isn't returning, and I accept that in a return loop or a dog bone style layout, the whole formation of the train is going to be turned round and the coaches are going to be back to front to the way they went. That's a compromise I can accept, if it means that the train looks like it went to York and it's come back from York, rather than it went to York and here it comes from London again. Obviously, real life samples that are out there. So I think Sutton Loops for one. I know on the west and there's bits like around Bristol. There's what they call the rhubarb, but no train service is really booked to run around such a small circle of track. So yeah, that's the kind of fiddle in an ideal world I'd like to have, with the return loop. But otherwise, I suppose it's the ladder style, and we touched on it earlier. Whereas I'd run a train in and then get another loco off the depot and go pick that train up and run it back out as a different train to try and cover that sort of train set vibe that you otherwise get.
Yeah, I think with the return loop, a really good example of it, and it's on a obviously much smaller scale, but we've talked about it before. Everard Junction's little shuttle system with his 3-car thumper, that has that sort of return loop vibe where the thumper goes down out off the scenic bit, and underneath the layout, it turns around in the reverse loop and comes back up and stops. And I feel that's in a smaller scale, that is possibly the perfect example of the whole return loop fiddle yard idea. And because that's on a shuttle system, it has that dream of, like he said, you can have the train going off, doing its thing, coming back again, and he can have that running whilst other things are going on as well.
Yeah, it adds the realism, doesn't it? And makes, as I say, it takes away that train set element and makes it feel more miniature railway, which it should be. So yeah, that's kind of. I'm trying to think of the other fiddle yard types that are out there, but all I can think is cassettes and ladders. But I'm sure there's more.
Traverser.
Yes, that's it. There's a traverser and the big turntables as well. I've never tried a traverser, and I'm sure it has potential. But again, I think that comes down to space, doesn't it? Because most of us tend to build up against the wall, to get maximum footage out of the room, which usually means that if you've got like a traverser, the wall's going to affect the suitability of how it works. Whereas I suppose on a exhibition layout, when you've got the more open plan space of an exhibition hall, you can have that sort of slider with the drawers and that. But
I
yeah,
guess if you're doing a traverser, the best way to do it would be to make sure that your inline that's going into your fiddle yard is as close to you as the operator, so as close to the front of your layout, so that in its most back position on the traverser, you can effectively drive in, and then you almost pull the drawer out fully to get to your last line. So your first line is up against the wall right at the front of the layout, and then you can sort of then pull the drawer out. That's probably the best way to make the most out of the space.
Yeah, yeah. If anyone can hear that noise in the background, by the way, that's Sam's little secret out. He's actually got people building his layout for him.
I've tried my hardest to keep it out of the way, but unfortunately it's there. It's there for everyone to listen. Sorry, everyone.
You've finally been caught out. YouTube update coming soon, obviously.
That's why there's been no layout updates on my behalf.
The builders have been too busy, but they're in today and they're fixing it up for you. But yeah, no, definitely. I think do you know the Traverser? I think is probably better than the ladder in the sense that it doesn't require hundreds of pounds worth of points and point motors, and it probably gives you that little bit extra length, maybe. But then again, it's also being able to move. I've seen massive ones. I saw a massive. Someone built an absolutely huge. I think it was American Railroad Traverser, and it's on about 9 sets of wheels, so they can a couple of handles, so they can move it along. It's definitely got that advantage, but like you say, it's got to be in the right position, hasn't it, so that it can be effective and useful.
Yeah,
maybe it's something in the future, but.
Yeah, I think what's good about the Traverser as well is we've seen Triss at Double O'Neill who used actual bits of track and wagon bogies to do the Traverser, which I thought it was such one of those moments. I was like, that's actually really clever. But then you also have it where you've got the people who put it on effectively like the runners from a drawer or a desk, and that's what they go on. So the bigger drawer you have, the actual sort of the more amount of space you've got, and I guess from start to finish, you just need to have the run of your drawer long enough to be able to put it in.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Yeah, it's maybe, as I say, I think it may be something to try in the future and sort of see if it works. Maybe I could try it on my 009. Because I haven't worked out how I'm going to do the fiddle on that layout yet. In fact, I haven't worked out how it's going to go once I'm beyond the one baseboard I've built so far. I wasn't sure it was going to be round or an end to end.
I think with a 009 one, you do have that. You could either do a return loop version of it because of the space that you've got, or I think the Traverser is definitely a good idea for 009 because of you don't have the massive long trains that you have with when you're doing a layout like mine, which is like 7 to 9 coaches.
Yeah, you know what? When you say that, the one that springs to mind that I saw work quite well was on the old Scarborough to Whitby line base layout, which Sandy Bay, that was what it was called. They had Traverser on that, and again, because it was only 2 coach train with a loco, it was a very small Traverser that fitted on the layout. It didn't come out too far from the edge of the baseboard, and the way the scenery is done was that when you pushed it into the baseboard, it just went under the hill, so to speak. So it was sort of covered over there. That was quite effective. So yeah, maybe that's an option for what I have. But as I say, my bigger plans for my 009 is to try and make it go from one end to the other. So a fiddle yard wouldn't be needed. Everything could live on the layout as it's intended, like a real railway. But that would probably result in the 009 gauge being completely taken down to accommodate that in the room, but we'll see. Future plans and all that. So there we are. Right, that's our favourite fiddle yards. Let's move on to buildings. So, Sam, do you prefer the ready to plant style, such as Scaledale and Woodland Scenics type buildings, or are you a kit builder or a scratch builder? And what do you like to do when it comes to the actual infrastructure on the railway?
I'll put my hands up and say that probably when it comes to scratch building, it's probably my least favorite, or I'm not as good at it as I'd like to be, or I don't have the patience to do it. It goes along those sort of lines. I haven't got any scenery that's necessarily ready to plant. I really love MDF kits, and eventually painting those is probably the best idea. I started like a lot of people with the Metcalf kits, and I think they are a really good part of the hobby in the sense that if you don't have the painting skills or you don't want to paint, they're a really good way to get into it. And it gives you that something. I find that with the Metcalf kits, it gives you that sort of, if you have an afternoon of hobby, but you don't want to necessarily be working directly at your layout, it's a really good one to sit at a desk or at a dining table and build and do there. as more so that you can do it as like an afternoon thing. So I'd say I'm probably in between and say kit built. Love building Metcalf stuff. It probably doesn't necessarily fit with everybody's style of scenery or modeling, but I really like the MDF style kits, and it's why I'm a big advocate of David Bunter's yards with his platforms, and obviously he did the bridge for me as well, and the JS Models kits. They all look really really good, and I think it gives you that. You don't have to cut out every single piece for a block or a brick or a piece of thing. Whereas the scratch building, I don't have the confidence to do it, which feels really weird saying it as someone who grabs £200 models and makes them dirty.
Yeah, but fine to do that, but cut a piece of card, heavens no.
No, it's just not for me, I'm afraid. What about you?
Oh, I think it's obvious. I love scratch building. I think it's one of my favorite parts of the hobby. Um, anyone that's like seen my channel, I scratch built a model of Swindon panel signal box because I wanted a model of my first signal box, and it all stemmed from visiting Pendon, like seeing what was made there, and when they tell you that these are cardboard models, you're like, what? And it's cardboard and watercolor, and that's essentially how they make the models. They've used plumber's hemp for the thatched roof and all these little things, and then all the intricate little details that are modelled inside that ready to plant doesn't have. Ready to plant, it will look nice on the outside, but it's just a hollow shell inside, and we can light it up, but what's the point? Well, you can't see anything in there. I like to model the world as the world is. So some people say, "Oh, you're wasting your time." When I've made a little office inside, and you can only see it through the window if you sort of peer through. But I really enjoy that because I enjoy making that model, so to speak, of that interior, and I like the fact that I know that if I look through there or someone comes to visit and they sort of lean down, have a little look through, they'll see that something's going on there. Right now, I am building a store to go with the cattle market, which is all going to go in the corner of my 009 around the sidings. And originally, I was just going to build a sort of low relief cattle shed and just have like the slate brickwork pillars to hold up a corrugated roof, and it would just have a wooden gate, and it wasn't going to be much detail. And I wanted to not have the low relief so obvious. So I thought, well, one side I'll have a tree, and the tree can sort of hide the fact that this building ends immediately at that plywood back scene. And I thought, well, what can I do about the other side? And I happened to be watching a video on Pendon, and it was like on goods trains, and they do these nice little short videos about 5 minutes long. And there was a barn, sort of storage shed or whatever you want to call it, in the goods yard, and I was like, that's what I want. That'll be perfect to go next to the cattle market and hide the fact that it's a low relief building. So I have been for the last week just scratch building this barn. It's taken me hours, absolute hours, and that's all I've done. I've got as far as building the main walls on the outside. I then decided, yep, it's going to have timbers on the inside. So I've got balsa wood. I've cut the balsa wood up and I've glued it all on so it looks like it's got proper timber posts in there. So when you peer through, you can see them. I've stained them so they look aged and old. And then I've done the same upstairs. So there's an opening. I can't remember what they call those sort of trap doors on the side, but they have a pulley system and pull boxes up to store them upstairs. And I've built a little office in there. And I've scratch built like a furnace, and there's a desk, there's a cupboard. It's all those little details I just love putting in there. And and again, I'll try to stick it to Pendon style. I've used cardboard, so I've scribed the card for all the planks for the wood, and I really enjoy it. And that's yeah. So for me, it's scratch building. I just love scratch building because it's so personal as well and unique. You're not going to get anything like this on anyone else's layout.
Yeah, and the weird thing is I don't like doing scratch build myself, but I love watching people scratch build. So watching you, El Towan, Everard Junction, like watching these people do scratch building, I find really interesting. But I don't have the attention span to be able to scratch build an entire to build all these things. But I love watching it, and I think that's my caveat to this: is if it's me doing it, kit built. If it's someone else doing it, I love watching scratch builds.
Yeah, I love building a kit. I really do enjoy building a kit. Again, it's that personal touch of being able to, you can just build it straight from the instruction, or you can modify it to suit your own layout. You can pick the colors. I just feel that a ready to plant building just doesn't give you that satisfaction. And I'm not against them. I have got a couple that I've bought that sometimes it just makes life a bit easier. I've bought there's a modern relay hut that Hornby did because, well, yeah, I'm not going to make a better job of it, and you can't see the interior of it, so that'll be fine for the line side. But it's a case of like my engine shed. That's for the 009 I built as a kit, and I'm not happy with it because the doors aren't wide enough to fit the Baldwins. So I know now that I'm gonna have to go and kit bash that, and I'm looking forward to doing that because that means I get to modify it to suit my needs, and again end up with that unique building. But yeah, that's I suppose that's my happy place for the modelling is the scratch building. I would like to try 3D printing, but I just don't know how to use the software. But I would like to have a go at that because I'm sure some of the things I try and scratch build out a card would make my life a lot easier if I could just jump on a computer and design the CAD and then just print it in resin. But
I think it comes back to that having the time to do it in my head is where I can't do it.
yes, that's the other issue, isn't it? It's yeah, like you say, the time factor. I'm happy to just whittle away hours just making these little models. They're more likely to survive as well, because I know how much effort I've put into them. I'm not just going to rip the layout up because I'm bored of it. I go, well, hang on a minute, I've just spent hours making that, and now I can do this bit and this bit. That's what it comes down to for me. Cool, right then. So obviously, I've spoke very passionately there about scratch building, and Sam likes building a kit. Whilst we're on the subject of buildings, then Sam, what piece of railway infrastructure do you feel is most influential to your modelling? Is there something that inspired what you want to make? I got a feeling it's your bridge.
You'd probably be right. That is what inspired. Certainly, this iteration of my layout was definitely inspired by the bridge. And I feel this might be a little bit left field for anyone because this is the thing that I always, and even technically up until now, have always wanted to model. And eventually I will model it, especially seeing as I found a version of it which exists in my particular era. And that's a turntable. From the days of little Sam, I've always wanted to have a layout that had a turntable. And obviously it's that iconic shed scene of having a turntable where you can turn your locos round or put them in the shed. That was in essence what I wanted when I was growing up. I didn't necessarily need a layout. I just wanted to be able to drive my trains onto a turntable, put them in the shed, and then get them back out again and then go off shed sort of thing. And a turntable has always been something I've always wanted. And when I got back into the hobby in 2013, I bought the Hornby track plan book at the time. And the layout that instantly captivated me was the one that had the turntable on it because I just always wanted a shed or a turntable that I can put things on, turn them around, and all that sort of thing. And I think you'll probably know where I'm going with this. And I started building the old layout in the loft with the big loops, and I'd hit a point where I was like, I've always wanted a turntable, but I've gone away from steam now. I'm starting to model diesels, and then I found a little place called Old Oak Common, which is a diesel.
Not familiar.
Are you aware of it? I thought it was quite little and no one had ever heard of it. And I suddenly found that my love of diesels and having a turntable was suddenly an available thing for what I had. And I was mesmerized by it. I love the idea of, and if you've not seen it, just go and YouTube some Old Oak Common footage of the diesels at the sheds with the turntable going into and you can see where that Bachmann Scenecraft depot building is definitely takes inspiration off there, but the difference is it's a 2-lane instead of a 2-lane instead of a 3-lane kind of thing. But if you don't know, there's a video way back when I started building an quote unquote exhibition layout, and I'm laughing because it never got further than this point. And basically I built this, I think it was somewhere in the region of 8-foot long, 4-foot deep layout. And the idea was I was going to have this, it was four layout boards, and the fourth one would be the fiddle yard. And the idea would be that the engines would go off scene, you take them off, put your new engine on, and they either go through the TMD shed or they come around the sidelines. And I just designed this Old Oak Common inspired layout. And I never went much further than getting the baseboards. I got the turntable in, and I bought a DCC controller that specifically does the turntable, and you can micro engineer all of the different outputs that goes on it. And it wasn't cheap, and I bought it, and I've just never been able to get around to it. And I think if I was going to demolish my current layout, and if I had a bit of time in between, I probably would, because I've got the boards right behind me with the turntable and all that sort of stuff built into it. And I'd love to do that particular layout. I just, very much like a lot of things, you can start certain projects and you lose your steam, or you need a break from it and stuff like that. And it's one of those, I do always look back at it and go, oh, I'd love to just have that whole old oak common feel of it. And I feel if I had the space on this layout, the thing that the Old Oak Common style layout lacked was having the trains running in the background like Old Oak Common did, or in the foreground, whichever way you're looking at it. And I've always said that if I did shunting, I would still need the trains going backwards and forwards somewhere with the layout. And I think that's what would be something a further iteration of it might have to entail. So yeah, turntable is my piece of infrastructure that's influential to my modeling, not just now, but also back in the day. And I do eventually hope to have some sort of Old Oak Common inspired bit on a layout eventually, just not right now.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, around that time, there was other turntables kicking about, and there was some Blazy, obviously, had one, and Marylebone as well, the turntable for you turning the old steam engines around, run the specials out of there. So yeah, I can. It's a great. They are great, aren't they? They are. When you think of railways, and particularly steam days and depots and that, the turntable springs to mind. It's an iconic piece of railway infrastructure that, yeah, particularly a steam modeler, is almost feels essential to have on your layout, especially if you've got a nice big one with a depot. So yeah, I like that. I can't decide if mine is bridges or signals.
Mm-hmm.
Because I always like the idea of having working signals. Obviously, again, we go back to Busman's holiday, but once upon a time I didn't understand signaling, and then one day I did, and as soon as I understood it, I wanted it on my layout because it's not a railway without the signals. It's not good. It doesn't feel right if the signals aren't there. But I love bridges for that elevation of the railway. There's something quite dramatic about it, especially when you get to the very big viaducts and the nice deep valleys and that sort of iconic scenery. And whenever I'm trying to sort of think of a design for a layout, there's always some sort of bridge element or a sort of elevated track section sort of incorporated into it, because I've got, I just want this idea of, yeah, maybe it's those memories that stick in my head, but I always seem to, whenever I think back on railways, it's always seeing the trains from the point of view of being in the car or on a bus and looking up at the railway and just happening to catch a glimpse of a train passing over. Yeah, I can't decide between two. Maybe it is more bridges, because the signals sort of, I suppose I would expect to have signals on the layout, but yeah, I always like the idea of trying to get a bridge in there somewhere. I don't think I've built a layout where I haven't used a bridge, to be honest.
I think with bridges as well is we rely on them for so many things in the railway, and obviously you've got the real railway aspect. I mean, one thing I had planned to do eventually was to use that Fratton-esque bridge that I had on my old layout and use that as sort of my part on my station, but use it as a scenic break. And you don't often see the walkway bridge that you get on railways as a scenic break. But that leads into, we use bridges so much that they are integral in a lot of railway layouts as the scenic break. They are the beginning and end point of a layout. They are used to, like on my layout, or like you said with viaducts, they're used as a scenic piece that offers so much more to the layout because of it. You have the bridges that are for the train to go under. You have bridges for the train to go over, and they can be used in so many different ways. And you've got footbridges, train bridges, road bridges. Like there's all these different things, and they're so iconic. And like, try looking for a layout that doesn't have a bridge. I'm not saying they don't exist, but they're on almost every layout.
That's it, isn't it? Yeah, like you say, they're perfect for scenic breaks. But sometimes they can be like the main focus, can't they? I think there's the Royal Albert Bridge model railway that was originally, I think, Model Railway Challenge TV show entry that's now on the exhibition circuit.
Was that in your Abingdon video? Just as a quick,
Yes,
quick
yeah.
plug.
It is, yeah. It was in another one as well. I've seen it a couple of times. Yeah, it's I think a bridge. I like a level crossing too.
I will say with level crossings, it's all well and good having an automated level crossing that goes up and down when a train comes along and stuff like that. I do feel like we need to sort of put it out there. And this is almost directly directed at Folly Lane at this point. I love Folly Lane. I've said it's one of my favorite layouts. You either need to turn the level crossing sound right down or stop it entirely, because that thing gets annoying when you're at a show of it for the whole day. And that goes to anyone who's got a level crossing on their layout. Turn it down. It doesn't need to be as loud as it is, because I guarantee most of the ones that I've heard, they are louder than the whistles and the horns that are on the diesels that are running on their trains, on their layouts. Okay.
Yeah, scale your sound, people. Scale your sound.
But I'm not wrong, am I? Like, look at anyone who's got a level crossing. They're always obnoxiously loud. And it's like, why? It's never that loud in real life.
I think the problem is because obviously the length of layouts means that the frequency of trains is far more than it is in real life. So therefore, those level crossing barriers are going up and down a lot more than what they would, or a lot more frequently than what they would in real life. Which can then probably add to the pain of that klaxon going every 10 seconds.
Yeah, but I do visually love a level crossing.
Yeah, a nice big gated one, I think, always looks very smart.
The other thing, obviously, your 009 layout has two different types of bridges on it, and they both look fantastic in their own right. And it's that thing of, for such a small layout, you've managed to fit two really iconic, distinct bridges on the layout. And I think you don't have to have a giant layout to fit these bridges in, but you can also have the really small ones that just capture the imagination by having them on the layout as well.
Yeah, no, I was quite pleased with those bridges, particularly because one of them was based on Dolgok Viaduct, and just sort of a shrunken version and curved. I think without them, it would just be on an embankment. It wouldn't be such an effective looking layout.
So infrastructure, and the thing is there's so many options that you could pick in here. I mean, my other option was stations. Stations just give you so much. I love standing at a station because they give me so much inspiration for what I want to build, or they give me that little bit of oomph. Because weirdly, when you're on a train, I find, and this someone might be telling me that I'm completely wrong in this, I find I don't get as much inspiration being on a train as I do from watching trains come and go. It's nice to say, oh, I've ridden behind this, or I went and rode on this train. I find it far greater to see that train coming screaming into a station, or going past, or seeing something off in the distance in a yard. They give me far much more inspiration for modeling than actually sort of going and riding on trains, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, it's I mean, sometimes when you're on the train, I mean, it's all right on like a preserve rail, isn't it? When you're going nice, slow, 25 mile an hour, you're taking the scenes and you're like, yeah, this is quite inspirational. But when you're out on the main line and you're doing like 90 mile an hour and everything's just flying by, you don't really get to appreciate the visuals of the world. And like you say, so when you're standing by the line side, it can be a lot more effective, I suppose. And that's how we model, isn't it? We model by the line side. We don't model from the cab view. And that's probably sort of what affects our decisions. Yeah. There's plenty out there to inspire, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. So with that, should we go on to our next question?
Is there a model or layout that inspires your own work?
This is so difficult, because I feel like the more time I spend in the hobby, the more layouts that inspire me. And I find, especially being on this, doing this show with you, it's ironic that this is part of the 1 year anniversary kind of thing, that I found more and more layouts in the process that I go, oh, I really like that. And you just sort of keep going. I think I could probably name three that really inspire me. One of them is Neil from Little Layouts. His Old Oak Common layout was a big inspiration to me. And although I don't necessarily copy that in what I do now, it definitely inspired me with how you could do a layout like that. NSE Latchmere, I've always said, the rolling stock that Pete and Danny as well have shown have always been really influential. And I don't think this comes as a surprise to anybody. And funnily enough, we've been talking about how it's been a while since we've seen a video, and we know why. But Everard Junction has been a massive inspiration to me for what I model, the type of stock that I model, and stuff like that. And I think whilst theirs is a 4-track mainline and I'm a 2-track mainline kind of thing, I love seeing their layout updates and what they do and the stock that they run and things like that. And I think I can't wait for the day that they come back once they've sorted out their house, and they've said they will be coming back. It's just the case of the house is a priority, which is absolutely fine. But I'd say that's my 3/4, if you include Danny, big inspirations to the hobby.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a bit shocked that someone would prioritize the roof over their head, over their model railway. But we're not all the same, I suppose.
Some people just don't have the right priorities, James, do they?
I'm sure it'd be great when he does come back, and it'd be fantastic to see what he comes up with. And more on a positive note of it is, obviously, if it's his own house, can probably feel that little bit more commitment to building that layout without having to worry about it coming down, which is always sort of been hanging over Everard Junction's head whenever he's built a layout, isn't it? He's always considered that he might have to pull it apart at some point. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes. I suppose on my part, then the inspiration is, I think you're right. It's difficult to draw one card and say it's this because it comes from lots of different places. Again, touching it earlier, Pendon Museum has been that influence in scratch building and making my own buildings and wanting that higher level of detail, no matter how waste of time some people consider it to be. It's I find it enjoyable, and again, when you go to Pendon Museum and you look at what they've made, and the guides, they'll show you and tell you, have a look here, look at those cabbages, there's a little butterfly on there, right? And kind of, most people go, well, why bother? But it adds to the charm, it adds to the realism, I think. The same with when I was watching one of the videos, they had the large gate to the yard, and they modelled the bolt. It must have been brass wire, so they've got the brass wire and they folded it to look like the bolt that goes in the ground that holds the gate in position. And I looked at that and I thought, you know what? That's the first time I have ever seen the bolt on a gate modelled that's supposed to hold it in. Usually, someone just gets a gate and like a wheels kit gate or something, paints it up a little bit, might get a little bit of a weathering, and it's just plonked on, and there you go, that's a gate. Whereas these guys are going, yeah, this gate has a bolt, it has 2 hinges, and it has a latch, and we will model all of that. And so, yeah, I find Pendon Museum probably one of the most influential parts of it. And then there's other layouts out there too that the Polton Levide, I think I've said that right. It's sort of northwest around Blackpool Way model railway. I've seen it at shows a couple of times, and it's always one that sticks in my head as something I wouldn't mind building myself. It's not massive, but it's got the operational potential of being an interesting layout, and I quite like that. And Oak Road as well, the Western region one, modern day First Great Western, with the virtual quarry behind it. It's just a station with virtual quarry and 2 lines and a bay. But again, it's so simple yet such an effective looking layout, and I find that inspires my ideas for my own builds. And then the final one is just the Taunton Model Railway Group's Bath Green Park. I've seen so many photos of it, and actually see it in the flesh, I think it's a fantastic layout, and it's again something that sort of inspires you to have a go yourself and try and create something. And I'm never going to build anything like what they've done. I haven't got the room for one thing, but it's it's inspirational and gives you that sort of encouragement to have a go yourself. So yeah, those are my choices, I suppose. But yeah, like I say, there's always something out there. There's always something else that inspires you to see something. There's a little layout called Littleton Curve that was in May 1997 Railway Modeler, and that layout has always followed me around for influence, just for the fact that it's this tiny little, I think it was about 3.5 foot by 3.5 foot square circular layout with 2-track fiddle yard at the back and a siding. It was that simple. But I always found it so fascinating. It was like this really lovely detailed engaged layout that looked so great to build. And I've had a couple of goes, or I've built things sort of based on that concept, and that's always one that sort of influenced me as well when looking at building small layouts.
I agree. I don't think we'll ever be struggling for inspiration. I think that's the thing I'm taking from this question is inspiration is constantly always out there. Some of it sort of comes and goes, and you might not sort of use it as inspiration for another sort of 2-3 years or 6 months or something like that, but then it comes back to you, and there's always inspiration in this hobby, and all it takes is for one person to bring something out and you go, bang, that is what I want.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Yeah, I can think of times when you've seen someone's work, you've gone, "Oh, that's amazing! I want to do something like that." And you know, it lights the fires that sort of get you going. I think it's great, isn't it? And obviously, our last question was going to be, can you give a social media shout out you think everyone should see? But we'll save that for the end of the show then, Sam, and take a little break now if you're cool with that.
Yeah, sounds good to me. James, happy 1 year.
There we are. Happy 1 year. Here's to many more, hopefully, with payment. Hello there, dear listener. We thought we'd just take a moment to talk to you about our Patreon. For the last few weeks, Sam has been putting out an advert impersonating David Attenborough, trying to entice you to give us your money. And you were right not to do it. But now we ask you from the bottom of our hearts to follow us on Patreon.
If you do want to support us in what we do, and you believe that what we do is good enough that you want a part of your money, you can find us on Patreon, and you can start donating for as little as $1 a month. It's in dollars, it's in freedom credits, however you want to say it, but eventually it will just take the pounds from your bank account. And if you do want to support James and myself, head on over to Patreon. There's varying levels and tiers that you can do, and there's even a tier where I'll weather stuff for you and James gets the benefit of it. So why not support us on Patreon today?
Indeed. And that way we can get new microphones so you can stop complaining that you can't hear us. Right then, we're back, and that was our new set of questions, and hopefully we can use them on a few previous guests. I think they're all hiding at the moment, but we'll find them, drag them out, and get them to answer again, I'm sure. Yeah. Shall we have a look at the exhibition diary then, Sam?
Let's.
Right, let's have a look. Right, for this up and coming weekend, it's April already. Where did that go? Eh? It's Friday the 4th. That's an interesting one to start on. But the West Midlands Narrow Gauge Group is having their April group meeting at the Four Oaks Methodist Church Hall, 155 Lynchfield Road, Sutton Coldfield in West Midlands. On Saturday the 5th, the Milton Keynes Model Railway Society is having an open day. This is at 1 North House in Bond Avenue in Bletchley in Buckinghamshire. I'll go to that. Right, Saturday the 5th, the Burley Model Railway and General Modelling Group is having an open day exhibition at the Burley Village Hall, Pound Lane, Burley, Hampshire. See, it's getting late in the evening. I can't speak.
Ironically, you and I are not the late people. We are usually in the middle of the day we're doing this.
Yeah. Very rarely we record into the evening. Right, Saturday the 5th, Hillingdon Railway Modellers at the Hillingdon Test Track Open Day. It's at Yoseley Baptist Church at 74 Colham Avenue in Yoseley, Hillingdon, Greater London. Horsham Model Railway Club is also having an open day. It's a lot of open days on the 5th. At St Leonard's Church Hall, Cambridge Road in Horsham, West Sussex. Saturday the 5th also sees Ipswich Railway Modellers Association. Go on, Sam, guess what it is? It's an open day at their club headquarters at 48 Norfolk Road, Ipswich, Suffolk. Why is everyone having an open day? It's all on the 5th. No, there's no exhibition so far. It's all open days. That one's cancelled in Haverhill, Suffolk for One Track Minds. So if you were looking to go to that one, it's not on. Saturday the 5th, Leicester Museums Technology Association is having a railway gala day with model railways. Sounds quite cool. At the Abbey Pumping Station Museum, Corporation Road, Leicester, Leicestershire. Apologies to all the Welsh listeners. Langsites Institute in Orb Road, Newport, Gwent. Saturday the 5th, Newgog 2025 exhibition. The North Dorset Railway is also having an open day and model railway show at Shillingstone Station in Station Road, Shillingstone, Dorset. All weekend, Cheltenham Great Western Modellers Group at the Cheltenham Model Railway April 2025 exhibition at St Margaret's Hall in Coinston Road, Cheltenham, Gloucestershire. All weekend of the 5th and the 6th is Bingham Model Railway Club at the South Notts Show of 2025. Cotgrave, Welfare, Woodview, Cotgrave, Nottinghamshire. Macclesfield Model Railway Group is having the Macclesfield Model Railway Exhibition at the Tivering School, Manchester Road, Macclesfield, Cheshire. The Orpington and District Model Railway Society at Pratt's Bottom Model Railway Exhibition 2025 at Pratt's Bottom Village Hall, Norstead Lane, Rushmore Hill, Pratt's Bottom, Orpington, Kent. Shildon Model Railway Club, a spring exhibition at the Locomotion NRM Museum. That sounds like a great day out. Off Dale Road, Shildon, Durham. Basingstoke and Northants Model Railway Society is having their biannual club open day on Sunday the 6th. Sunday the 6th also sees the Ilford and West E6. Oh, terrible. Ilford and West Essex Model Railway Club live steam open day, adjacent to the north side of Chadwell Heath Stations, Station Road, Chadwell Heath, Greater London. Sunday the 6th, there's loads. Junction 72A Model Railway Club, open day, St Catherine's Priories. I start ringing a bell every time it's an open day. St Catherine's Priory, St Catherine's Road, Exeter, Devon. Sunday the 6th, the Model Railway Club, spring open day at the Keene House, 4 Calshot Street, London, Greater London. Sunday the 6th, Colchester and District Model Railway Club, 2025. Spring open day.
Do you reckon it's because it's the 1st of April? So, or it will have been the beginning of April, therefore the new financial year. So everyone's getting their own. Is there like an unofficial open day?
No, maybe it's like the end of Model Railway exhibition season, so they just feel like to close it off with open days or something to try and get people interested for the summer months.
Yeah, maybe.
Not sure. We'll have to talk to someone who has a club and find out what the reason is. This one is held at the Orpen Hall, Lexington Road at West Bergholt in Essex. And that is all the open days and exhibitions for this up and coming weekend. As I say, I mean, it's great to know there's that many clubs out there, though, isn't there? But
yeah, it really is
crazy. Right, social media shout out time.
Yes. So for social media shout outs, I forgot to say, I bumped into this person at Ali Pally, and I've made no qualms about the fact that I'm just happy that there is another podcast out there, and this is for Adam at Rail Stuff, or the Rail People podcast. Adam was extremely lovely to talk to. We were just talking about bits and bobs and what we do, and how you and I get a show out every single week, and he couldn't fathom how. So Adam, if you're listening, I hope you're well. Go check out the Rail People podcast or Rail Stuff podcast, however you want to try and find it.
Indeed, that's a good shout out. Mine's still sticking to YouTube. I've got North Tyne Loop, which is shamefully only got 438 subscribers. So please go find this channel because it's absolutely great little channel. I think it's well, as the description says, it's a Tyneside based layout, lots of sort of really dirty weathered locomotives and 9Fs and black 5s, and I think it's a splendid looking layout and some great videos to watch. So that's my shout out, North Tyne Loop. Well then, Sam, there's only one thing left to do. I mean, we've been doing it for a year. You think people will be able to find us by now, but for those still looking, how can they find you?
If you want to get hold of me, you can find me on Instagram at emperors_path. Alternatively, you can find YouTube videos at Emperor's Path. James, how can they get hold of you?
Well, if you want to get hold of me, it's Western Signalman on YouTube, Western Signalman on Instagram. And don't forget that the Model Rail Replacement Podcast has its own Instagram account. And do remember that today, if you are listening on the 31st of March, is the very last day that you can put an entry in to win the £75 gift voucher with JS Models. All you have to do, go to their website, jsmodels.co.uk, have a little browse, decide what you'd spend that voucher on, and then tell us on Instagram, and you can be put in the draw. But you must do it today because it closes tonight, okay? And that is the Model Rail Replacement Podcast Instagram account. And also, if you want to enter by email or contact us for any other thing by email, it's modelrailrp@outlook.com. So that ties us up for this show. All I can say is that for the last year, hopefully, we've been entertaining, informative, and have replaced your model railway, if only just for the last 365 days. I've been James, and with me has been Sam. Thanks for listening.
This service terminates here. Please ensure you take all of your personal belongings with you.